G'day all. So I've decided to do a spoiler-heavy podcast review with my good mate and film expert Oliver Harper, who in the past I've been able to work with doing commentaries on the original Mad Max trilogy. So here I am now with Oliver. Oliver, how are you? How you going, mate?
I'm doing good, Michael. Thanks for having me on your channel to explore some more Mad Max. Well, not really Mad Max, Furiosa.
That's a pretty good way of putting it. Not really Mad Max, but Furiosa. We're gonna have to get into that a bit. Oh man, so we both saw it. I saw it like on the first day it came out here in the UK. I saw it on Friday. When did you watch it there, Oliver?
Yeah, same day. Yeah.
Yeah. What were your initial thoughts of the movie? Because I've got a few things I'd like to say that I didn't say in my initial review.
Well, I did enjoy the film. I thought the film was very entertaining for what it was. It was well produced. As you come to expect from George Miller. Production value was extremely high. Apart from some ropey green screen from now and again, it didn't seem as well sort of polished as Fury Road in the sort of blending of computer effects and live action material. But aside from those little nitpicking moments, I thought the movie overall was a bit too long, and fundamentally we kind of knew everything about Furiosa for the most part in Fury Road. So to explore her backstory in a 2-hour plus movie seemed, I don't know, somewhat of a pointless kind of adventure, I suppose. Because inherently, the problem is because you have a prequel, so everything you kind of know, anything that's kind of any characters put in jeopardy that's going to return for Fury Road, you kind of know they're going to be okay. So it's again, with all Mad Max films, the stories are always kind of straightforward. They're never too complicated. They are sort of fables. They're kind of like, as you were saying about Mad Max 2, it's kind of like a ghost story, about the feral kid. Once he's older, he tells you about this, what his encounter with the road warrior. It's all also down to interpretation of these people's memories of Mad Max. So each one, as we've seen, continuity is always thrown out the window. So, with Thunderdome, you've got the gyrocopter returning. The guy, who again, is a pilot, but playing a different character. But I suppose it's a bit like James Bond, where they keep replacing people, but it's the same actor, perhaps. Like in GoldenEye, and the same guy, the bad guys in Living Daylights. So with Furiosa, again, it's this kind of straightforward story. There isn't much of a huge revelation about certain things. The key aspect, which I really loved, was the world building, which we saw. Beyond Thunderdome was kind of the original 3 was the one that really kind of built the world of this post-apocalyptic kind of wasteland. And with this one, because we both played the video game, you are seeing from 2015, we are seeing this kind of Gastown and Bullet Farm. Gastown was only seen sort of fleetingly in the background in Fury Road. I want to go there,
Yeah, as I mentioned in the review, the good thing about this one is we did get a bit of more world building. We did see more of it. Yeah. So, considering the budget's about not that much greater, apparently. Like I think the first Fury Road was 100 million, and this one's like 170.
I think they're kind of close.
They're kind of close, yeah.
Because
150, I think it was, and I think this one's about 170.
Yeah, because Fury Road had made like close to 400 million box office, but it did cost a lot, and it obviously cost to market it. But it did make like I think over 55 million on home video sales or sort of Blu-ray sales. So it was a profitable film. Hence why Warner's threw loads of money at Furiosa, but also down to that was 9 years ago, so you got kind of inflation where it's a slightly more costly film. But at the moment, sadly, despite the strong reviews we've seen from the press and a majority of people on YouTube, there's obviously some that's going to complain it's about the famous political agenda with reviews is that it's very woke. But I'm like, it's getting a bit silly now. So I don't know if that is a reflection of people's attitude to not see it, but I think I'm surprised Warner's would throw nearly 170 million at this production. I know they've got a lot of tax breaks I think in Australia for the production, but it's kind of really weird. It's not doing well, and Garfield, which is out at the same time, which is a terrible film, is doing far better. Well, marginally better.
Well, the PG-13 kids films usually do a lot more, but I don't even know it's PG-13. The Garfield, I don't know enough about it. Going back to the political stuff, I thought it had less compared to like Fury Road. Now, Fury Road, some of the complaints, look, I didn't see any issues with Furiosa or any of the other main characters. The main characters I didn't like. Might as well touch on it. You know, I'm not too shy about this sort of stuff. The one or two things I didn't like in Fury Road, they touched upon about, oh, men destroyed the world type thing. And they kind of pushed that a little bit too much. And I'm thinking, because they had what were they called? The mothers or whatever?
Yeah.
They were my least favorite characters in Fury Road. And not because of anything, whatever reason. You might put it like, to this and that. But they did have some of the backstory was a bit cut out.
Right.
Where in Fury Road, I guess it's... In Fury Road, what they did was, when they went back to the green place, where we saw a bunch of men on stilts.
Yeah, yeah.
What this backstory that I read was cut out was those were the boys that were born to the many mothers, and they discarded them.
Oh, right. Okay.
So they left them out. So that's something that kind of showed them as a negative light. And there's this one other moment in Fury Road where I can't remember, it wasn't Splendid, it was one of the other wives, was complaining like, because she was pregnant, if it's a boy, it's this and that, and the mother's like, it might be a girl, you know, what does it matter? It depends. It's who raises you, not, you know, what you're going to come out as. So, and because that backstory, I can see why people had certain complaints with Fury Road, and I'm glad they toned that sort of stuff down. They didn't play up on it this time.
Well, you know, the women in the film, you know, are portrayed as what you come to expect within that post-apocalyptic world. Everyone can look after themselves, and like,
most definitely.
As soon as you see like Furiosa's mother's like kicking ass straight away.
Oh yeah,
it's awesome. But so yeah, I mean, I don't. People just have a very short-sighted view on you know what they think is kind of this and that with the film's agenda. I don't think it has none of that. It's just like very straightforward. You see this girl treated like shit. She knows how to look after herself, and definitely. You see over the course of like a decade, you see her grow up. And but again, it's like we're seeing this, which is great. I mean, I'm always happy to go to the world of Mad Max. I think same as you.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a far more elaborate world than what we saw with Thunderdome, which was, you know, at the point now, the furthest point where they got to in terms of like production budget, and they really kind of had a clear view of what the film, what this world should look like. Even though it's kind of a mishmash of Road Warrior and a bit more of like I don't know, sort of a twisted version of Lawrence of Arabia, you know.
Well, we mentioned they had the same composer from Lawrence of Arabia.
It did, didn't it? Yeah, I was always watching the film again recently, Thunderdome. It's like I really wish Brian May had come back. You know, I had no idea why he didn't do it. Maybe because he's busy or whatever, or some sort of political kind of decision with commercial aspect of the film, because you got Tina Turner and stuff in it.
Yeah.
But so with this one, it's you know, the straightforward nature of it was kind of common with what we saw with Mad Max. But ultimately, you're seeing a film that is, again, even though this is kind of a spoiler discussion, there isn't really, in terms of spoilers, you kind of, the only thing you would essentially spoil is like Dementus, perhaps, and his role within the story. But everyone else, you kind of, they'll be fine. Apart from, you know, Praetorian Jack, who was like, who you were a bit and ahhing about, because I quite liked his character.
In my review, I have issues with that.
I thought he was cool. No. You know?
Again, thinking back to it, because I have left a few days since I've done that review. Like, it's been close to a week since I've done the review.
Yeah.
So I have sat with it a bit more, and I thought about it. It makes more sense to the story why Furiosa would have more of a kinship towards Max when she meets him in Fury Road. Like,
it makes sense, yeah.
That does make sense. Someone else I saw recently pointed that out, and it did give me a bit more sense of that. Now, why did I knock a bit of him? Like, there was one scene in particular where I was rolling my eyes, where he's walking down the road, and that's the classic shot from Mad Max 2.
It is, yeah.
Where that's 100%. So for me, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Look, I respect.
What do you expect him to do,
character.
Michael? Cartwheel down it, or skip, maybe?
No, it's how they frame that shot.
Yeah.
It's how they frame that shot, where literally he's walking down. It's like, oh yeah, I see what you're doing. You're doing the exact same shot from.
Well, he's got the shoulder pad. He's got the leathers,
shoulder pad. Is like,
and he gives her though the double barrel kind of shotgun, doesn't he? Whatever it is,
exactly. And even that, for me, that gave me a bit of an eye roll, because the only reason it gave me an eye roll is because I thought it was for him.
Okay. Oh, well.
And I thought it was like whoever gave it to him, like, hey, you the Mad Max, Poundland Mad Max, try not to connect you too much with Mad Max. Here's a double barrel shotgun just randomly here in the wasteland that might suit you. I'm like thinking,
Well, you
but
got to
then when
take. You got to take back that eye roll, then, haven't you? Because it wasn't for him.
Well, I have to take back the eye roll because I'm like,
roll those eyes back.
roll those eyes back. I mean, oh, jeez. But Praetorian Jack, okay, yeah, I might have been harsh on him in the initial review because, yeah, he played a part to this role. He played a part to this film where, going back on that, I was so captivated. Again, I used the word captivated a few too many times in the review. I had to cut it out. I was captivated. I'll try and say it once. With the first 40 minutes of the film, leading up to the whole situation in the Citadel.
Right, okay.
Like, just everything about the chase scene where she's being chased. I didn't expect it to go that long. And then when it did, I was like, okay, that works very well. Then when we got into the other part, when it starts off with the war rig attack, I think that's where I started to be a bit like something doesn't feel even here. And that's when we kind of got introduced to Praetorian Jack. And the war rig fight just went on for too long. Apparently, I think it went. They filmed it for 70 days, or was it 7 weeks?
I think it's about 78 days, I think.
78 days, yeah, something like that.
Long shoot.
For a 15-minute shot, I'm thinking, geez, they put too much time in it.
I was a bit confused at that point because, judging from my memory from me, because obviously we've both seen this film once, so with that sort of attack sequence, I thought, wait a minute, are they trying to escape or they're just delivering petrol? Are they just making their rounds? Because obviously he's in charge of this war rig, which it doesn't. The characters in it, you don't see how they sort of divvy up the jobs, so you just see her doing this straight away, and they I got the sense when she
snuck on
escaped.
board.
She escaped and hid, didn't she, for so long? What called masked up, never spoke really, so didn't know who she was. And as soon as she kind of reveals herself to Immortan Joe, he doesn't seem like, where have you been? You know, it's just like it had this sense like, I don't know, he sort of went along with it. I don't know, there's sort of little character sort of directions and stuff that weren't entirely clear on my first viewing of it.
Yeah, I thought it was jarring as well, and the whole Praetorian, because we touched on it, I've got to clarify what I meant about Praetorian Jack. I just guess the way they presented him on screen, for me when I saw him, it felt too much like a Mad Max light. And the one thing I touched on the review that I didn't really talk much about, I kind of edited it out because I thought I'd leave it for this podcast, where for me, I think had they not done Fury Road, had this been the first movie they'd done, this would have been a good introduction with Max and Furiosa, this kind of situation, where she learns from him at a young age. Like she carries on the torch because she learnt how to be a road warrior from Mad Max himself. I mean, if you're going to learn from someone, learn from the best. You know what? I would have liked that more it's a double-edged sword, because had they started with this film first, a young Furiosa story, it might not have worked as well. But now that I'm thinking about, maybe this would have been the best way to go. Do like the Ghostbusters type thing where we have this new character, Furiosa, and again, everything about the character, I didn't feel any kind of negative, like towards politically, or like, no, she's holding her own because she's copping a beating. Now, one thing I love about action heroes is when you see them get beat up, struggling, when they get really hurt, because they feel more human, and when they come back supercharged or recharged from that pounding they get, you're much more with their character. A lot of we're touching into this thing again, a lot of female-based action films now these days, they kind of seem to forget that, where in a lot of cases they'll barely mess up the leading actress's hair, and she's like, oh, I'm tough, I'm this and that. The one, again, this going back to Charlize Theron, I liked Atomic Blonde because she was just kicking ass. That was really brilliant. Really good. And that for me is how it usually should be done. And this is what happened with Furiosa, because she was copping that beating. She was going through the hardships. She was doing that sort of stuff. So when I saw the bit where she's learning from this guy, Praetorian Jack, I thought that would have been a good opportunity somehow had she met with Mad Max, and this would have been like Mad Max 4 sort of thing. Right. Where it was a half mix. Then we would have gone to Fury Road with the next one. Yeah. But again, maybe,
because it's a weird thing, isn't it? Because it's difficult to know if it would have performed well anyway. If that was if that was first out of the gate, because now we're seeing it now and it's underperforming. So that would have scuppered ideas for Fury Road. So they've gone out like it's a bit like with like the Chuck Norris movie Missing in Action. They released the second one
I didn't think about that.
It's mad, isn't it? Like the second one's clearly better. Let's put that one out first, and then have the other one be a prequel. There you go. So you've got the comparison we have between Kill Bill 1 and 2, and we've got Missing in Action 1 and 2 as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I got to mention on that because if anyone hasn't seen the review, I thought because you mentioned the movie was a bit too long. I agree on that, but from what context, I thought this story would have worked better as a trilogy. In like, if this film was added 2 more extra hours and cut into 2 volumes, just like Kill Bill, and given its chapter sort of setting and the narration it's got, it kind of felt very inspired by Kill Bill, and the third film would have been Fury Road.
I don't think there's enough story there to really expand upon Furiosa in there for 2 hours longer because it is already fundamentally quite a straightforward story. They didn't have much meat to it in terms of what could we add more to this apart from having her experience kind of more action settings or visiting other citadels or kind of like strongholds. But it's a funny one, isn't it? Because as with all these Mad Max films, there's always kind of the simple nature of it all is down to George Miller's type of directing is like making silent movies with sound. So he never really relied much on dialogue. So you saw, like, especially with number 2, Mad Max 2, where Max barely says a word. And then the third one, he's a lot more chatty. And then Fury Road, Tom Hardy doesn't really say much, but when he does speak, it's what he needs to do, isn't it? To sort of, it's always Mad Max at the centre of it all, as me and you have explored in the commentaries, is that Max is a reluctant hero. He's basically a supporting role within his own movie. Yeah. And then this one is very much focused on one person, and she is centre stage, but it's all a lengthy kind of build-up of a revenge story. And that's, fundamentally so different to Mad Max. He's not about revenge. He's just about, like, can I get this? I'll help you, but in return, I just want a bit of oil and be left alone.
Yeah. Having touched on that, see, that was the argument that I didn't agree with when people said, "Oh, in Fury Road, Max is a side character. He's not the main center of the story." Like, you're kind of forgetting he's like that in a lot of the films. Like the central plot, he's the central character. Don't get me wrong, he is the central character. I agree with that, but he's not the central character to the plot. In regard, like, the whole situation with Mad Max 2, like the compound, that was going on before he even showed up. And he's kind of like the fly on the wall type situation. He helps the story move along. Yeah. But it's not about him. It's about these survivors out in the wasteland pumping fuel and being attacked by Humongous. And then you go to Beyond Thunderdome, where it's Bartertown, and also the survivors in the hole in the middle of the earth, I think it's called, something like that. So Max has always been that kind of situation. But here's a funny thing. There's a kind of like situation where people who watch the first Mad Max, especially if they've seen Fury Road, are very disappointed with the first Mad Max.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm thinking, imagine a context where Mad Max 2 came out first, and then Mad Max 1 came out second as a prequel in the same thing. Yeah. And I think you'd get the same situation as you got now.
I think you're kind of right, because I think even at the time, back in 1982 or 83, when say people got to see the Road Warrior or wherever you live in the world, it's Mad Max 2 first, just down to its popularity, and then you went, it's Mad Max 1, let's watch that. A lot of people kind of watch stuff out of order. And same with me with like Evil Dead. I saw Army of Darkness first, then went back to Evil Dead 2, then 1. So it's kind of weird way to watch it. That's a good argument, But Mad Max 1 is always there. Just watching it again recently, it's so different because it's their first movie. George Miller didn't really know what he was doing, and it was just kind of would you say Aussie exploitation kind of feature, or would you say?
I say that.
Yeah. Well, no. Would you agree with that? It is kind of more of exploitation kind of film.
Not really. No, not really. And I'll say why. Well, that's a hard one to sort of think. If you've seen Aussie exploitation films from that era, like Stone is one of the most prime examples, because Stone kind of kicked off this sort of the action genre, especially the motorbike gangs and so forth. I don't know.
What year was that, though? What year did that
1974.
Right, okay, so this is Mad Max is kind of the tail end of it all, right?
It is, exactly. Well, no. Here's the funny thing. what happened basically was, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he started his own production company, and he made, I don't know how he got the money, but he sort of like with his mates, he made a motorbike movie called Stone. And you got several characters from the original Mad Max film that are in it. Like Hugh Keys-Byrne plays a bikie. Roger Ward, the guy that played Fifi and all that, he played in as well. Now that felt much more like an exploitation. You know, they were smoking a bit of dope. They were skinny dipping. There was free love, and they were being a bit of a hippie type thing. Like, hey man, like
yeah,
it's an interesting concept. Then Mad Max 1 came along. And that kind of does have a bit of that exploitive feel. But if it was more of an exploitation film, there'd be a lot more nudity. There'd be more nudity. There'd be more drug use and all that sort of stuff, which is not prevalent in the first film as much as it is, especially.
They try and make it a bit more sort of commercial, I think, really, in terms of make it more appeal to a wider audience. And I think the exploitation aspect is kind of the car chasing and the action side of things, which that was very prevalent in that sort of 70s decade. But
I was just going to say, for us, what happened was, because I just want to quickly finish on that whole exploitation thing. Come the early 80s, we got a situation called the 10BA that was introduced by the government. It was a government incentive to say you get like huge tax rebates of making your own film. So a lot of people, what they do, they'd go to these doctors, they go to these dentists and say, hey, would you like to invest in our film? It's a tax break for you, and you get like a guaranteed money back. And that's what was happening. And a lot of these amateur, filmmakers, it's not necessarily amateur filmmakers, it's so much like people that did commercials, people that did TV. It's like, all right, I've got the money now, let's do a movie. And some of them weren't experienced enough to do a movie. And they just chucked out whatever was popular. So it wasn't hindered by any kind of like, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. It was like free-for-all. So what do people like? People like boobs, people like motorbikes, people like cars, chuck it all in, And as a result, there were a lot of issues in terms of health and safety on the set. So there was like a fatality in one movie in particular called Midnight Spares, where the camera operator got hit by a car.
All right.
But that was more the Ozploitation, where Mad Max, even Mad Max 2, they don't sort of fall into that category.
No.
For me,
it doesn't. No, it falls into kind of post-apocalyptic science fiction action film. That's it. It's you can look at it and go, okay, I know exactly what it is. Well, the first one's kind of like it's kind of a slightly of a mixed match of things, and it's kind of structurally kind of very different. And once it kind of shies away from the action, it's kind of more traditional kind of film where it's got this kind of very romantic kind of score in places where it's so aggressive in number 2, and then 3 it's kind of like pop mixed with something a bit more epic. And then we saw, actually we mentioned the music actually, because the score to Fury Road, which is quite memorable, and a couple of tracks which are really good, and the rest of it's kind of a bit noisy, right? And then Furiosa is just pure noise, and I said to you, like, well, even I mentioned in my review that a lot of the time you can't hear the score because it actually gets buried by the sound effects, which may be a creative choice, because I'm like not happy about this. Let's amp up the volume of the sound effects,
I thought the soundtrack for Fury Road really was something that really set the tone and fit the world, and I was impressed with it. Because by that stage, I mean, obviously Brian May has long since gone. I think he passed away in the 90s, and he hadn't worked on Mad Max since 82, so he was never coming back. And I liked what was in Fury Road. And watching Furiosa, I was like halfway into it. I'm like, where's the music? I couldn't hear it. Like, it was drowned out.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I thought it was another composer. I thought, okay, so they didn't get the same guy. Apparently it is. Like, until I checked up, it's the same guy. It's, what's his name again? It's
Tom Holkenborg. He was also referred to as Junkie XL for a number of years, and he just used his real name. But yeah, so the parts of the score, there's like little nice moments between Praetorian Jack and Furiosa, but the rest of it else just kind of either a sort of copy and paste of the original kind of score, which is a kind of repetitive kind of that. So I suppose it's supposed to somewhat symbolize, or with your ears, like sort of these kind of the pistons of the engines kind of mixing in with that. So you've got this kind of weird mix of sound effects and music that kind of blend into one piece, which they often do. Like if you look at this, like the Alien 3 score, it has sound effects in the score kind of mixed in, so you get what's what's leading, the sound effects or the music. So a lot of composers do that. So you create this kind of a seamless blend. But yeah, Furiosa, one of the most noisiest scores. If anyone listening or watching this podcast downloads the score or purchases it, it will just blow your speakers because it's just like horrendously noisy and just like it will give you a headache. So yeah, not a great piece compared to the sort of the classic music by Brian May, which is it can't be beaten, I don't think.
I see what you're saying with Alien 3, and I get that. And I think, yeah, the thing with this one here, Brian May had done such a different type of score where, for me, even in Beyond Thunderdome, when it wasn't included, it felt like it was missing part of the world. For sure, yeah. He really created a sort of tapestry of what the sound of Mad Max should be. Even though the first one is a bit more cheesy, where you've got those shots of the Hall of Justice, it goes sort of like cheesy music, right? It feels like it's from the 1960s or something. I said in the commentary we did, it feels like from the Super Friends or something.
It's in it, yeah.
Right now, at the Hall of Justice, it's all going down where Superman and Batman are arguing who's going to go out with Wonder Woman. And anyway, Brian May, what an odd choice for the first two films, but he did such a great score. It's kind of interesting. I would have loved to see what he could have done with the third one. Going back to Furiosa, I don't think the soundtrack from Fury Road worked so well. I just don't know why it didn't work here.
Yeah, because if you listen to samples of it, it doesn't really have. There isn't like a theme, or there isn't like a driving sort of bass line to get you sort of motivated. It just really was just such a, I don't know, heavy percussion turned up to 11, and it doesn't seem to, it doesn't sound like it's something that's good to listen to by itself. And a lot of great scores are always, you can listen to the soundtrack and then picture the film in your head, and like a Jerry Goldsmith score, John Williams, you go, oh, that's great. But in the case of this, it was just noise. And Fury Road had those moments where people have always listened to, I think it's called Brother at Arms or Brother with Arms or something like that. But it's that piece of music where they're sort of going from. I think the funny thing about Fury Road was like we're going over here to point A, and then oh god, we've gone the wrong way. We've got to go back again. And so that's the kind of the things back and forth. But within that back and forth chase, you've got this kind of great piece of music which lasts about 9 minutes. But everything else is kind of, again, you're hearing stuff that's very Hans Zimmer like, but just more aggressive and noisy. So it depends if that's your cup of tea. But
it depends. Yeah, like you said, one of the problems compared Fury Road with Furiosa, Fury Road had this bonkers setup where they had the music truck, whatever the hell it was called, where they got the guy with the flaming guitar in front, the drums, dum, 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 and it fits so perfectly. Blending of the soundtrack with the movie itself, because you're hearing the beat, you're hearing the dum, 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 and the driving along.
That's the adrenaline, doesn't it?
That's the adrenaline. And as I mentioned as well, I think you mentioned it as well in yours, your review, Oliver. In my review, I mentioned I was waiting for that adrenaline kick. It didn't happen.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
It was always on the cusp, but it never got there.
Yeah, you got a cool new vehicle at the end of the sort of the I suppose, is it the war rig? I don't know what it is, where the spinning sort of minces up people.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
So you got that kind of added in, which is kind of cool. And you got like Furiosa underneath the truck, sort of taking people out and hiding there to sort of repair things or whatever. Things get sabotaged. But yeah, there was something about it that either because the music wasn't really doing its job to sort of help with the adrenaline push, or the editing rhythm, the rhythm of the editing wasn't really getting you excited. But it's also back of your mind, whenever they're put in trouble, as mentioned in Jeopardy, you know she's going to be all right. So it's just I think because the story didn't really add to this kind of threat. It just said, okay, we're just on this journey now to deliver the oil to Gastown or pick up something, it was delivering vegetables, wasn't it, and stuff in a truck.
Yeah, it was. I think it was going to. It was Gastown.
It was going to Gastown. Yeah. So then they do a trade, right? It's all about a trade, isn't it?
Yep.
So they get the gas. So within that journey, you're not really told about this. You just they're just delivering vegetables, but you then just get randomly attacked by Dementus's men, who have basically gone rogue because he can't control his men. He's really bad leader, despite him
Yeah.
kind of bigging himself up to be this kind of Roman kind of like leader.
Yeah, with the chariot and everything.
Yeah, with chariot and everything, which is really well done, because I didn't
Yeah.
actually know they actually had done something like that in the 70s. There's photos of these guys with these chariots, all these motorbikes, right? I thought it was nuts. Crazy Aussies doing stuff.
But the 70s, man. Like I said, one day me and you, like, we should watch Stone. It's literally the 50th anniversary this year. If you watch Stone, there's some crazy things going on, man. Like, they got this whole funeral precision, or whatever what's it called when it's a funeral party. Anyway.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
One of the biggest shots ever filmed.
That's it.
Procession, that's the word. One of the biggest processions ever filmed. They got this one motorbike low to the ground with the coffin on it, and all the way on the back, you got like 100+ motorbikes just following.
Really?
And it's on, I think it's on the Hume Highway. I don't know, like it's probably on the Great Western Highway, one of the others, heading towards Sydney. I recently did like a location filming for that one.
That's right, yeah.
And yeah, the thing with that one is, before I forget, this made me laugh because you're saying we know that Furiosa is going to be all right. Because the situation, we know she loses her arm at one point. Have you seen the movie Hot Tub Time Machine?
Oh yeah, of course.
You know the Crispin, spoilers anyone, you know the Crispin Glover's character where in the future he's lost his arm and the guys go back and they say, wait a second, and they're waiting for every reason, like, how's he going to lose his arm? It's like, I almost chopped it off. You know, like all those instances, like, it didn't happen. That was me in the cinema.
When's she going to lose her arm?
How's she going to lose her arm? Honestly, this is what I thought was going to happen. I thought because she tattooed her way back home, and because Rictus discovered her, I thought that was going to be a tell.
Oh, he's going to cut it off. We'll take it.
Or no, or she was going to cut it off. I thought she was probably going to cut it off because so no one could get to her to save her community.
Yeah. Actually, it was quite good actually, because I thought at first she was going to lose it by just because she got her arm stuck between two vehicles.
Yeah, it got crushed.
Scarred all the skin off.
Yeah. Oh, that was like, that was again. That
was really nasty, wasn't it? And then she, because always with prequels, like when you saw like that Wolverine movie where this is how he got his jacket, this is how he got this and that. It's so fucking lame, right? But in this, when she just literally pulled her arm off or cut it off and escaped. And I thought that's actually quite unexpected. And she walks literally back to Immortan Joe, just like missing an arm, just holding it, all the way back. I'm surprised she survived that. So that was, that was kind of a nice little moment to show that she was going to go above and beyond to sort of escape and pull her own arm off. But yeah, so it was as these little points to show you that sort of character progression are all kind of done well. It just boils down to the fact that even though we are seeing this kind of world again, and I love how the film opens. It's just like, this is Australia, okay, folks. You know what I mean? If you're completely confused where this film was set, it's Australia, and it shows you the whole world, and it shows you it is all kind of like sand and wasteland, but there is water. The oceans are still there. It's not like the start of Resident Evil 3 that one by Russell Mulcahy was just like, the world's just gone to Mad Max and there's no water left, and it's so. And then the fourth one, they completely forget about all of that because in George Miller fashion, continuity, no, we're not that can go away. So yeah, it's just ultimately down to the fact that I like the film. I recommend people watch it, of course, but it is, you fundamentally kind of by the end you're like, I don't know if that story needed to be told. It does really kind of cement the storyline of Fury Road more, which is great, So, but it's for a very costly movie, it's not something I would have commissioned. I would have said, look, okay, folks, look, people, love Mad Max. He's been going on for 40+ years. Would it be wise to cut him out, and not have him included, and then throw 170 million at it? You'd be like, that's kind of a big risk, and especially in the state of things where people overreact and go, there's a woman in the film. Oh my god, I can't watch this. Yeah,
so I think that those blokes, especially if they're men, who have that issue, are few and far between. Because for the most part, I know most men, most of my mates anyway, who, if it's a strong, well-written character, male or female, like again, going back to Ellen Ripley from Alien, they never stop and say, oh, I like that character, but I wish it was a man. I like the movie, but I wish it was a male. No, I never, the mates that I know, the people that I know, don't ever have that issue. And not once did that cross my mind with Furiosa, because again, I mentioned in the review, George Miller does so well with these female characters, going back to Max's wife, Jessie, where she holds her own against for a split whatever moment with the toe cutter, and then you got Warrior Woman, and then you got like Tina Turner's Auntie Entity. So he's always done that well. So I've never once had an issue in that regard.
You got the old lady in Mad Max 1 with a shotgun, in the middle of the street. Boom! Just fires his gun. But yeah,
I remember acting, but I was always a fan of her from the TV series Prisoner.
The old Prisoner, was she from? Okay.
She was in Prisoner. She was always, God, I forget her name right now, but she was always a crack up. If you've never seen her in that one, she's bloody hysterical.
There's the problem being is like we have been given characters that I just don't have much of a backstory on, and are kind of confident in everything. So in the case of Furiosa, it gives you a lot of time to see her build up from a child to an adult, and to sort of complain that she's maybe a bit too strong. It's just like, well, everyone in this universe and in this future has to defend themselves. And you get idiots as well within that sort of a bunch of characters. But or you get there at the Citadel, everyone just relies on Immortan Joe because they just need water and food, and they just don't want to do anything for themselves, because it is like it's supposed to be like it's the end of society, so everyone has to fight for themselves. And if you're not going to punch your way out of it or shoot your way out of it, you're kind of screwed. So, and you've got to be able to drive. If you can't drive, you're messed up as well. So
only the strong survive in this world, and that's the whole point. You have to be, from the get go, you have to be someone who's tough enough to survive. You have
to be able to drive. Be a mechanic. So a lot of guys who work at garages should do well in the future.
Well, they got the name. Oh, no, I'd be pretty good in that. I mean, not with these cars now. I mean,
you'll be all right, Mike.
I'd be all right. I don't know. Probably get a motorbike. I don't know. Like, always got this.
Get your motorbike. Use your Conan sword you made, and then you'd be all right.
Have you? Oh, you haven't lifted it. Jeez, I wouldn't. That thing there, mate, is.
Put it on your back.
It's so heavy. It's so impractical. When we mentioned a bit about her arm, I wanted to touch on the other thing. I thought this film had a bit of extra gore in it than compared to the other ones. Like, did you see the beginning with the one bloke, the one who picked up Furiosa, where he gets his throat cut, and then he walks in, you see he's gargling, you can see the throat, so much detail, like, wow, that's so graphic. And then Furiosa's mother, what was her character again? Mary something, I think it was. It was Mary Jabas, I think her name was, but she was played by Charlie Fraser. Like the damage she received on her back, I thought, oh man, that's just so painful. Just looks so, what's her name? And then she
gets crucified, doesn't she, as well, and set on fire. Her mother.
Was I missing something? Because this goes back to that. There was something that seemed odd about a crucifixion, where it seemed like one of Dementus's men was doing something specifically to a lower region. And it kind of like they cut it out, like they didn't show too up much of a close.
You just see her
she was being tortured,
both her arms and legs tied up, so she basically looks like she's going to be pulled apart. But she's just on the screen, and then they set her on fire, don't they? Well, you kind of cuts to Furiosa's eye as it zooms in, and you see the reflection of the iris, and you sort of see her getting burnt,
tortured.
So it's a nasty scene, kind of played up with kind of the wackiness of Dementus. Chris Hemsworth just chews up his scenes, and I love it where he just, I don't know, he thinks he's intelligent, but he gets things wrong. And he used...
That's good, I didn't think of that.
Because the older guy who... What was the older guy? I think he's just like a teacher or...
History man, I think his name is.
History man, yes. Who just... knowledge is the key to survive, he says. Like, try to remember everything and try to learn. And when she doesn't... Which Furiosa kind of just doesn't really acknowledge. Just because it doesn't say anything, and just sort of, brushes it off. But I suppose her key to survival is just kill, and escape. That's about it.
Vengeance, I think, is what drives her. It goes back to Ben-Hur. It goes back to Ben-Hur when he's rowing and he's the only one to survive. And the guy says to him, "Hold on to that anger. That anger will keep you alive." Type.
Yes.
So that is a driving factor for her thing as well.
And it plays into the themes of the movie and Dementus and his image and what he's trying to do, and the sort of the ludicrousness of his demands and how he wants to rule the wasteland. It's kind of baffling in a way where he's kind of not in a bad guy in a traditional sense, because he comes across as like kind of understanding, he's kind of humorous, and it's called a bit of a joke to him. But then he's he's really bad at being a leader, but he's also kind of ruthless as well. And so like when he's in the bullet farm, he's getting shot down and he's hanging on for his dear life. All the bullets all kind of falling off the like the platform. You know, he's going to fall into that molten lava or whatever it is. And he's just all like bumbling and like kind of finding it quite amusing. You know, like he's all like it's all just a joke to him, and that's what I love about his character. And it's for once actually, it's kind of a somewhat as you're saying, he's a bit like the villain from the first one.
A bit like Toe Cutter, yeah. Hugh Keys Burn.
I hate guns. You know, that bit. You know.
I hate guns. Like,
So,
that was, I think, Dementus. We didn't really touch enough on him to talk about it, but first of all, in the credits, he's given Dr. Dementus on IMDb. He's never mentioned that in the film. Like, I didn't hear, but he had several names, like Dementus the Red, when he got sprayed with that red flare sort of type thing. He's embracing it. It's like, oh, okay, fair enough. His character, up till the point where what he does to Furiosa's mum, that for me seemed like the only kind of up to the point until he drags the body around, until he drags Praetorian Jack around. The ultimate bad thing he'd done up to that. But then I shouldn't say that. He tore apart someone with like whoever can get to the motorbikes. You know, lady and gentlemen start your motorbikes.
They were pulled apart so quickly. It was kind of a bit of a pointless endeavour, wasn't it? You know, just like straight away their arms and legs were pulled off. Which you don't really see. You don't really see.
No, you don't see. You see kind of like smoke, and then they all go their separate ways. Touching on Dr. Dementus, he's not even called that. Dementus, the one scene that I thought was just hysterical, that I really like, when he shows up at the Citadel, and you got his lackey introducing him very similar to the Lord Humongous.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
You know, and they're talking about Dementus the this, Dementus the right. You know, I thought he was going to be said the Master of Disaster. The whole Apollo Creed, like, he's got a list of names. I like that a lot. And, I didn't think about this till just now. The bit where, it reminded me a bit of Conan, where they're looking up, says, send whoever you want to send down. And Immortan Joe, you know, or picks, or whoever picks, I think they say, we want that one. I think Dementus or someone
one of the war boys. He just
yeah, I thought he was actually going to get down there, slide down, and have a fight. I thought, okay. But the fact that he just really much more powerful to show these people are fanatics towards Immortan Joe.
Yeah, that's the comparison to Conan, where, you know, James L. Jones goes, come on, and she just jumps off.
Child. Yeah, and she jumps off. That's exactly what I felt there.
Oh,
and I really got that situation there. Then Dementus kind of falls apart. His character sort of like, he's just, he can't hold on to he can't control his people. He can't sort of get anything done. And there are just moments where it's like, it's just all over the place with his plan. Like, what? Can you explain to me what happened with his nipples when he went to see Immortan Joe? Because he had that set up where he had the spring on. I don't know if it was Immortan Joe's brother, who was the original guy who ran Gastown, that painting that art, where he let go of it and Rictus lost it and went pierced right through the guy's brain. Next thing I see, like, his nipples are ripped off. What happened there? He's bleeding from them.
Yeah, I remember that. I think someone just did it someone like grab it, or like something had pulled it. I can't remember now. Yeah, my memory on that was a bit fuzzy.
It was hard to watching the film. It was hard to get any kind of like sort of grounding, especially when we got into the second part or the second act, whatever. It was like, what's going on here? I can't really follow enough of the story. I can't really follow the situation. Because
we notice a time of passage happens when because Furiosa cuts her hair off and she makes a wig.
Yep.
And that wig falls off and is dangling on this like branch, and you see a passage of time as the hair sort of stays there, but the branch itself kind of grows and withers. And then we find out that Dementus has really kind of screwed up Gastown. But we don't really know to the extent of what he's done to it, in terms of like, they're not producing enough petrol, or that, you know, the deliveries aren't being made, or the people are just basically using it all up and not actually, you know, sharing it. It's kind of a little bit unsure. He just all we know is this kind of mismanagement, and he wants, and then all the other, you know, Bullet Farm and so forth, the heads of these kind of departments all basically want to have a meeting and to basically get rid of Dementus, but he also has his own issues he wants to vent as well, and it all just goes wrong. And then he had this kind of 40-day war, right?
Yeah,
we'll see. So, which is kind of a montage, you know.
We'll get into that part in a second, because I felt like mentioned that I felt like Eddie Murphy, like listening to James Brown. What the fuck did I just miss? You know, just rewind. Did I miss all that you mentioned? I think I must have missed that. And I was paying bloody attention. I was writing it down. And you're right. It seems so like everything going everywhere. I can't get a good hold of the story. And what basically happens is there's an ambush at the bullet farm, where Dementis has taken over, and Furiosa and Pretoria Jack are going to drop off the supplies or whatever they're going to do.
Yeah.
And they get ambushed. Even this, like, it was so obvious something bad was going to happen even before it happened. It's like, oh, they're driving up to it, and like Pretoria Jack says, oh, you sit in the back, or you take the V8, which by the way was, I think, a Valiant. It was an old Valiant. I think it was just a 6-cylinder.
Do you think, like, because you know you've talked about on your channel a lot of the Mad Max vehicles, right? Where do you think this one in particular, Furiosa, is not really concerned with the vehicles this time?
Yes.
It's more about motorbikes, actually. I found like the last chunk of it is a lot of it's motorbikes, and then the vehicles themselves. You see, Furiosa kind of operates like maybe 2, and then the big truck or something like that. So it's not. It didn't seem like it was a thing. You know what I mean? Yep.
I think you're right.
Oh, that's that car. That's been modified with this and that. It's just more about like they're just using a different vehicle, and it just gets destroyed quite quickly. It just.
Well, for starters, she had this massive head start when her and Pretoria and Jack make a break for it. Because, okay, I'll give credit where credit's due. I thought literally Pretoria and Jack was going to die in Bullet Farm. I thought, okay, he's not going to make it out. He's not going to make it out. There's no way he's going to make it out. And next thing you know, he's made it out. I'm like thinking, okay, shit. And then they've got this massive head start. And then it goes back to the green screen that I kind of touched upon on the review that I did and you talked about, where it's so weird because it zooms in several times on Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
And it just looks so weird the way he zooms in and out.
Is that when he smashes the gates?
Yeah. When he smashes the gates, when he's driving, it's just going in when he's in the, the monster truck. And it just zooms in and out. And it just looks so weird because it looks so composited. It's like, why did you need it? And then eventually they get caught up. They catch up with her and what's her name? That's where she loses the arm. That's the bit where she gets her arm like crushed.
It's like Dementis' kind of vehicle, that big 4-wheel kind of like truck thing, whatever it is, that sort of monster truck, sort of catches up insanely quickly. I was like, oh, but hey, you know what I mean? It's got turbo boost wherever it is.
Oh, we did the shortcut where we went over the mountain where no one else did, so
that's
that kind
right.
of goes a bit justified about that. But yeah, she gets caught up there, and going back now that we're talking about cars in V8s, I'll segue into it. I think it didn't, even though the film starts with the zoom in on the Australian country like you see on the map, you don't have enough identity. The cars would have been such a great way to get you back into this world. Because the one thing that disconnected me a lot with Thunderdome was the fact that none of these cars looked anything remotely Australian. They're all buggies, they're all makeshift cars. When this one they had cars. They had older cars. But for some reason, like some of them were just American based. They had, which is so odd. Now, having said that, those Australian cars you saw in Mad Max, Oliver, are now worth a mint.
Really?
They're worth so much money now. Not just, especially the coupes, they can go for 100 grand Australian money. They can go, like, depending the quality, they can go for a lot of money. And if it's a GT, forget it. Forget about it. But they didn't have to go that route. There were Kingswood. There's 4-door Kingswoods. There's 4-door Fairlanes. There are other Australian cars they could have used. I would have liked a lot of things, but it would have been nice to have like a fleet of 1 or 2 XBs, 4-doors, just like the Mad Max cars, and have a bit of spray paint remaining from the main force patrol, something like that.
Just a sort of little nod to keep some sort of continuity with like the vehicles that are in that world. I think everyone loves the first and the second one because those cars are very prominent, and especially the first one, where they look brand new, so they're not they've been modified in a way where, moving on, like Mad Max 2, you've got a lot of beaten up cars or like buggies and stuff, and then they use a lot of those in Beyond Thunderdome for the final sort of chase with the vehicle, the train on the track. So it wasn't again, and also it's not about the vehicles anymore. And Fury Road also brings back all these kind of vehicles. It's great, but Furiosa, it's not really a concern. And it wasn't, it's not a problem for me, but for you and your audience,
it was a concern.
It's like oh no, it's missing this and that. And then we get to see, because you you mentioned you're a little bit frustrated with the Mad Max cameo.
I'll mention that too because we touched on that.
Because you see Furiosa going back to the Citadel, and you see it cuts to a long shot, and you see Max with the Interceptor, all looking mint, and he's got his dog, and he's just eating, I presume, dog food, right? And he's just looking, just like,
did he have a dog?
Yeah, I'm sure there was a dog there. I'm sure there was in the bottom right. Maybe I'm going. It's so quick, isn't it, for you to really notice?
Oh God! And here's my anger coming out.
And George Miller said this is set around the same time as Thunderdome, so he shouldn't have his car really. It should be, and he should have had long hair or something like that. I don't know, but that's the kind of the continuity again is always problematic, but
very problematic. And I'll touch on that now because you've touched on that. I'll talk about it now quickly. You know me. Well, first of all, before we move on. The cars you mentioned, the thing about Mad Max 1 and Mad Max 2 was that, especially Max's car, they had this mystical type of thing. It was something special, like the last of the V8s.
Yes, it was.
It added to the character, where this is a lone character who's got one of the best. He's the best of the best. He's got the best car. He's got the best skills. He's got everything that stuff's missing from Beyond Thunderdome, of course. You get it back with Fury Road, where we're showing the Pursuit Special. We're showing the Interceptor, depending who you ask and how it's pronounced, how they want to call it. And then it's shown throughout the film. It becomes the Razor Cola, and again, it has a presence. Now, in that cameo, going back to the whole, the continuity is just muddled everywhere. First off, the trailer says it's 45 years after the fall of Earth, which means this is 45 years after Mad Max 1.
I think it's after 2. I think it's after 2. Do you think?
Technically, if this was supposed to work...
Because Mad Max 1, you've still got some structure there. You've got a law system, you've got court system, and you've got people still buying ice cream, and they go to the garage and stuff. So it's kind of like... I think things really cement themselves with Mad Max 2, with its backstory.
Yep.
As it opens and how we show you... Okay, everything's collapsed by number 2. So I think it's kind of like... I would say 45 years from there, or maybe a bit longer. No, it can't be longer because Max will be dead. So
yeah, the continuity doesn't work with Max's age because he was already established. He existed pre the fall of society. So the only way it works is actually Mel Gibson in the role. That's A. B. In my mind, the continuity only works based on the condition of his car. If it's the original car, that would mean this would have to be between Mad Max 1 and Mad Max 2. Because
the car is very much Mad Max 1.
Very close to Mad Max. It's still got the lower grille.
Oh, yeah. It's got a paint job on it as well. It's got the white paint on it. You know, I swear it had that.
White paint.
Is it white paint? Like a number?
No, it was probably matte. It was black with matte. Like it lost a lot of its gloss. It's
sure. Okay.
So its condition. The condition of the Pursuit Special was how it would be between Mad Max 1 and Mad Max 2. Right. That's how the condition of the car is, because it's still got its front grille, which in continuity Max removes it for desert driving and lower clearing. Okay. So that cameo would have worked had it been at the beginning of this story 15 years earlier, where we introduced the Furiosa. That cameo, had it been there, it's like, okay, Furiosa gets kidnapped between the events of Mad Max 1 and Mad Max 2. Then Max goes off to Mad Max 2. Then he goes into Fury Road. Then he goes into Beyond Thunderdome. That kind of would have worked. But the comics muddled everything up, saying Max found another interceptor and and it's in the game as well, so I think. Yes. No, it's not in the game. Yeah, it's...
Well, some of the characters in the game are in the movie. Like, was it Scrotus? Was it
Scarabus Scrotus, I think it's called in the video game.
Sure. But he looks different, though. He doesn't look different than the game.
Completely different. Like, in Scrotus in the video game, for start, he was like a hulking of a man. Like, it was like 6 foot plus. That's right. Real big, muscular. And his son in this one here, Scrotus, I mean, it's, again, he recast that. It's the same. That actor, I can't remember off the top of my head, that actor played one of the war boys, one of the main war boys, who I think was the direct antagonist towards Nux. Right. I mean, I don't know if I'll put the name down here, but yeah, he came back recast as a different character. And he came back as Scrotus for most thing, which...
Also, when Furiosa needs a vehicle, she goes to... Is it Scumbucket? Whatever his name is?
Was it Chumbucket?
Chumbucket, he's in it.
Was that right?
Yeah, he's in it. But it looks different though. He's not like a hunchback, like of Notre Dame kind of thing.
Not like Ephialtes from 300.
Yeah, he's not like that. No, he's just a bit of a wacky guy. Chumbucket, yeah, we go. Brian Probert's played him.
Okay, so he's okay. It's funny because I recently heard that George Miller was not very happy. I could be corrected if I'm wrong. I'm not saying it as a fact.
Well, Jay
that he wasn't happy with the game.
Well, Jay from Red Letter Media said he had something negative about from George about the game, but they didn't provide like a quote or like an article. But I mean, for him to be upset with the game, but also incorporate stuff that was probably, he'd already told them about that they would use in the game, or they've kind of created themselves in the game. And then I don't know the sort of the ins and outs of that.
There's so many things going on.
But yeah, I mean, as I was saying, it's like, the case of George Miller, he's 80 plus years old, so but people of that age don't like video games. So but at least he can be comfortably aware that people love it. And
what's this newfangled thing? Back in my day, we used to play with rocks and stones. I mean, jeez, I'm getting on too. Like, my grey hairs are starting to show. People probably saying the same thing about me. You're just not with it, like the old Simpsons meme. I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was, and now what's it seems strange and scary to me. It'll happen to you. I love that meme. Yeah, no, the world was pretty much open, as you mentioned. Like, I didn't know about that with Chum Bucket for one. And then what happens in the film as well, like after the attack in Bullet Farm, because that's the one thing I really did enjoy. I think you mentioned touch. You see Bullet Farm, you see the widescreen. Again, obviously it's CGI, so they're not practical. So a lot of it's that. You can't do nothing about that, obviously. I mean, not much. What happened then, going back to the whole Mad Max cameo thing, for starters, it really griped me because I thought it would have played a little bit more into the film. But they kind of dug themselves in a hole with Fury Road because they'd never met. They acted like they never met before, so obviously they can't do anything with that. Where I think it's implied that after Furiosa passed out, Max somehow drops her off at the Citadel or nearby because she's discovered in this room full of dead bodies, like parts where there's all maggots and everything. And for a sec, I thought it was a healer. I thought she was taken somewhere to be healed because of her arm. Like in in Gladiator, where the maggots are eating the wound. This is no, leave them, they're cleaning. That's what I thought.
I forgot about that scene. Yeah, it kind of happens kind of relatively quickly. She just escapes from these weird old people.
It's just random because I thought it did kind of fit into this point where I think it's implied that Max finds Furiosa passed out in the desert, picks her up, drops her off. Now, it could have been dedicated more. I think the whole Mad Max cameo could have been way better. If that was the case, we could have seen one, even if it was Tom Hardy somehow. I mean, obviously, you're not going to get Mel Gibson. It wouldn't make any continuity now at all for this world. If it was Tom Hardy who picked up Furiosa and drops her off, and then she's kind of like taken in by someone who's going to heal or whatever, we could have got more shots of the pursuit special or something. It would have been something. But what is the point?
Yeah, I mean there was no point for it. It's just there just to show that Mad Max is here watching or kind of slightly observing, but he's not taking part. That was it. That's the only thing. And they could have cut it out. And if they didn't have that, you'd still be annoyed he wasn't in it. You know what I mean? If he's just there for a brief moment, that was not
exactly. I was set up to know that Mel Gibson Mad Max is not in this film. I was set up to feel like, okay, it'd be good to get a cameo, but it's not Max's story.
No.
Max's film.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting Mel Gibson to be there.
Obviously not.
Yeah, I was just like, if you didn't have Mad Max in it, you probably would go, oh, I'll be really annoyed. You just have a little cameo, but then they give you a little cameo, and you're like, oh, I don't like that. So you have to, it's just there as a little nod. That's all. So it didn't bother me.
Could you call it a cameo though? It's a long shot, a far distance, and it's literally a blink and you miss it. Had I gone to the loo, or had I turned to the guy behind me and talked and said, "Oh, what do you think?" I would have missed it. So for me, that's not a cameo.
And he would have turned and gone, shut up. But yeah, I mean, it's just there as a little nod. It's a little nugget.
It was poorly executed.
It's an Easter egg. That's all it is.
It's a poor Easter egg in my opinion, but that's me as a Mad Max fanatic, where it's like,
sure.
I mean, first of all, like the details with the car is like, what time period is this? Because the car doesn't make sense. When is this?
Michael, it's George Miller. The continuity doesn't concern him.
And from what I've gathered, he's not really a car guy either. Byron Kennedy was the car guy. George Miller was comfortable with a bit of anything, so he wasn't as concerned. Okay, now that we've passed that point, Furiosa's escaped from these. They must be cannibals, because by the looks of it they are, but they're dealing with maggots, so I don't know what the hell they're doing.
No.
She's running for her life. She goes up, And she confronts Immortan Joe and tells, like, she gets up, says, I'm Furiosa, this is what happened. He's waiting for us at Gastown. She kind of gives the exposition about what's going to happen. And to some degree, like you mentioned, it's like Immortan Joe has no reaction to the fact that she's been a woman, she's been this girl hiding out in his thing. Yeah. And he's like automatically, like, she's talking to him in a sort of like an equal level.
Yes.
In that, where he's no longer, and not because he's a bloke, but because he's like supposed to be the supreme god of everyone.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, like, no one, hold your tongue. Who are you talking to?
Yeah, there's none of that.
God
and also,
himself type thing.
She's able to get past his security to him very quickly. But I think down to the fact that she is the one who basically does the trading for him. She has that authority maybe to get through to him very quickly. But yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise that he doesn't go, wait a minute, you're supposed to be one of my wives. Get in that
exactly.
thing. You know,
what the hell?
Be locked up in a safe. But yeah, but then as you mentioned, like we touched upon briefly earlier with the war, which they do as a montage just to mess with people. I think that would have made the movie longer, man, if they kept that in. So I'm okay with it being like a montage.
Well, cut 7 minutes out of the.
But it is a very dusty montage because you can't really see what's going on. It's
exactly. It's not just a montage.
You've got war boys grabbing those spears, throwing them, and then you got things blowing up. You're like, I don't know what I'm seeing.
Well, the budget could have been saved and the time from the war rig attack, that 15-minute war rig attack. Take off 7 minutes of that and put it into this sort of thing.
What I think should have happened was, some of that montage was to see Immortan Joe looking through his telescope and observing some of the battle and are they reacting to it. And then you've got, like, Dementus on the opposite end doing the same. So they're kind of, like, directing this kind of war.
Two tribes go to war, like the song goes.
Yeah. So to see some of it happen from a long shot, you know, sort of get the scope of it all. But yeah, that would have been like 2 or 3 shots and you could do, but it would have cost a lot of money. But, you know, just to sort of get a little bit more scope to it. That's kind of what I would have put in.
Yeah.
Other than having like a 20-minute battle, which would have been, you know.
I don't think it needed a 20-minute battle. Like, I mean, shit, what can I say? Like, did it need to be that long? I'm thinking automatically Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, like the whole, thing there. But it's supposed to be, look.
But then the epic stuff's in Fury Road. You know what I mean? So you don't want, I think you shouldn't in some way undermine the next big movie, which is all about the action. Because again, it's like the Kill Bill thing, isn't it? Where, you know, the film's front loaded with the action, and the second one is you've got all the dialogue, the talky bits, you know, which is always not always everyone's cup of tea. But yeah, but the benefit is people who haven't seen Fury Road and then watch Furiosa, then Fury Road, they're in an amazing time because you've got this great piece of storytelling and it's all kind of be new. But for everyone else who's seeing it out of order, that's why we've got this kind of slightly underwhelmed.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Underwhelmed experience. That's the problem.
It goes back to the whole Mad Max thing. If you've seen Mad Max 1 first, the rest feels good. If you've seen the other two, like, then the first one doesn't seem as appealing. And I've seen a lot of reaction videos who are the same. It's like, and it does feel like a prequel. Now you look at Mad Max, you'd think it was made as a prequel.
Yeah.
Now we're touching on towards the end of the film, and this is where more disappointment comes in for me.
Oh, for you?
Okay. For me, I don't know about you. Okay, let's skip the whole part where the war, we don't see any of it. Okay, fair enough. Like, me personally, I would have liked to seen something a bit more added to it. Maybe cut a few scenes down from other previous shots to get it done. It didn't happen. Moving along. Now, Furiosa shows up and she commandeers the car from Scrotus. And she goes off driving. Now, this would have been a great opportunity to have a car chase, a Mad Max car chase. We don't. Yeah. She just shows up, she catches up with him, and then Dementus and his mates just go off their separate ways. And then we see the situation where the other bloke gets eaten by the sand. He gets fallen into the bike. He's got Dementus's motorbike. Now, where does this movie fail for me is that there's no chase at the end. And Mad Max, even Beyond Thunderdome, has a chase at the end. Where it's a proper, like, a car-on-car, head-on collision.
Yeah, it's really about the characters and the revenge piece, where she's spent all this time trying to get to him, and she's got this guy who's basically a bumbling fool and doesn't know really what he's doing, and it's all just done for him. It's all done on the spare moment. You know what I mean? It's all done on a whim. You know, and it's he has no grand plan.
No, and he admits it.
Yeah. Well, he's complete. Yeah, he's a fool, and she just. And you know, again, because it's the history man kind of telling you the story. We don't really know how she kills him, and at the end, he's got what we're shown is that he is basically, is he still alive with his tree coming out of his groin?
He's alive. That's where the thing where it's like, well, before we get to that part, he did this beautiful monologue or dialogue, whatever you want to call it, where he's talking about how nothing's gonna change. What are you gonna do to me? And like, I like the fact he has no fear because he's dead inside.
Yeah.
And
if
one of the reasons being
it doesn't change anything if she kills him.
Yeah.
You know?
One of the things being is that he had lost kids. He had kids before he lost them because the teddy bear is very symbolic of that situation where he tried to actually make Furiosa his daughter.
Yeah,
I think he genuinely was going to make her his daughter and not a wife, like in Morton Joe. Because again, when she says no, he's not my father, he takes back with anger the teddy bear.
It's slightly better morals, isn't he? Slightly than Immortan Joe.
Exactly, yeah.
She'd be my wife.
He's like, whoa, who's she? Is it your father? And like, I'm surprised he even asked. I'm surprised he just didn't take her. But I guess even Morton Joe's got some respect to say, well, that's his daughter, whatever. And he gives this wonderful dialogue at the end, or monologue at the end, Dementus, where he's been ambushed by Furiosa, where his motorbike's stuffed, his gun's empty, there's nothing there. He goes for the knife, there's no blade. And he does like say, it's not going to do anything. You can do anything you want. It's not going to change anything. You know, whatever you get out of it, get out of it. And then the history man gives it this whole like, no one knows what she did, you know. And and that for me was like, okay, it can be a bit left ambiguous. But the one ending they left that was supposed to be the definitive idea of what happened to Dementus, I'm like, what the fuck is this?
It's a bit strange that he's still alive with the tree protruding out of his groin.
Yeah,
it's grown over him. It's kept
him
there, and it's living off him. I don't know what that was.
That for me was like, what?
I think maybe on second viewing or third viewing, you probably get a better understanding of that kind of what George was going with for that ending. But
someone touched online that it has something in historical relevance to Greek mythology.
Okay.
So there is somewhere the gods turned someone into a tree because they were in love with her and they didn't, or something like that. Someone else explained it better online, but I don't want to touch on it without knowing. And that's where basically then the film says, okay, now they got a montage of Fury Road. And that was like,
I was like, I don't need to see that.
I don't need to see that either.
I wanted something else. It's like once it started, I stood up halfway through because I said, there's not going to be like a post-credit sequence where we might see Max or anything like that. I was just like, meh, I've seen this bit. Let's go. But I do want to watch Fury Road again. I was gonna, because I mentioned earlier on, I was like, I watched the first three yesterday in one big go, and I got to get to Fury Road again soon because it is a great movie.
Remember that movie you liked so much? Well, here are clips in it to make this film look better.
Yeah.
That's how it felt to me.
Yeah, here's a trailer essentially for Fury Road. You know what I mean? Was
it a question of confidence? Do you think like George Miller didn't have the confidence to say people are going to like it? It's just like someone at the last minute says, "Hey, we got to chuck some bits in." From
maybe just to remind you, maybe, but I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say, but because it's a two-parter now, so maybe it has to show some little bits to sort of lead into that. But also, what we're seeing at the end of Furiosa isn't literally going to dovetail straight into Fury Road in terms of the timeline. It's still a big. I think it's maybe a number of years apart, isn't it? Still,
no, it mixes up because what happens is it's a number of years apart. After the Chris Hemsworth bit, after Dementus, his body's demolished. He's nothing left of him, so he's probably been there for maybe a couple of years. Who knows?
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And then it goes to the wives. Everyone's in the shadows. I thought, did they get Charlize Theron back? And then it shows them hiding in the war rig. So this is literally the day before Max. Not even before Max shows up, because Max has kept captive for a couple of days, whatever it is.
Yeah, makes that decision to do it. So because it just shows her character. Despite her being fueled by revenge, her journey is not that. It's to save others as well. So and bring them to freedom. But where she couldn't, because she couldn't find her home. So she's got to take these women home. So
she waited a number of years, which is weird. She waited several years.
It's all about timing, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all about choosing her. She has the patience. She chooses her times well. not just go out on a whim like Dementors.
Yeah, Dementors is a sad situation there. I don't know. Like he is. I love those kind of characters where they're broken down three-dimensional and they're damaged. They're always the best. They're always the best villains.
Yeah, definitely. Villains are always kind of often a lot more interesting than the main heroes, who are often a bit quite two-dimensional. Thankfully, they've written for Chris Hemsworth a really kind of a decent character, has a lot to do, and he's got loads of faults with him that kind of make him really interesting, and why he chooses to do these things, and for him it's all just a gamble as well. So and I like about the character, he has no grand plan other than just to sort of rule, but without much thought. So which I like, makes him kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, having said that now, that's pretty much everything, the whole film. We've pretty much covered everything. Is there anything in particular, like, we didn't touch upon that you thought, okay, this was or this wasn't interesting, or this was good or this was bad? Because the one thing that I think I didn't touch upon, but I will say it just for anyone, whoever watches this at the cinema, you will be blown away by the cinematography.
Yeah.
That was just amazing to watch. That, for me, was the acting, and it was just the whole cinematography. That was the two main things, and you could say the directing. But having said that, where would you rank Furiosa now within the whole Mad Max saga? What would be, what would you think about it?
Right. Okay. So should we rank from top to bottom, or bottom to top? How do you want to do this?
Well, what I mean by ranking, I didn't want to say put it in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
But we can do that. I was making in general, like, how do you feel? Like, does this feel like a Mad Max film?
Yeah, it does feel like a Mad Max film.
It does feel like a Mad Max film.
Of course, it does feel like it. I mean, of course, same production design, same creators behind it all. It's still this world. It just doesn't have Max in it. But I think in terms of the overall experience of enjoyment, I'd probably put it on par with Thunderdome.
Okay.
Where it's going in the right direction, but doesn't quite deliver on the little bits you want, and because it's unpredictable, actually, it kind of it was also a plus and negative to that. And Thunderdome has starts out well, but has a kind of weird middle act issue, and then it kind of ends well, where the same with Furiosa has a kind of middle act kind of saggy problem, but does kind of it ends well, but doesn't really end in a way you were mentioning, with this kind of ends with a bang. It doesn't really end with a bang.
No,
but
it doesn't.
The bang, because it's the first one to actually be a continuing story with continuity, the bang's in the next one. So yeah, that's kind of in Fury Road. So
So I guess basically what it is, it's one of those things where to get the full enjoyment of Furiosa, you have to watch Fury Road.
Yes, you do.
Well,
yeah.
It kind of ends the whole situation.
Well, you could argue that it doesn't stand on its own. It has to have Fury Road connected to it. But as
to make it a better film.
Yeah, to really get the best out of the story. But this is based on our first initial viewing of the film, where I think in maybe a few more years' time you'd be like, "Fucking love Furiosa, it's amazing."
Yeah,
or you'd be like, you still have the same thoughts about it, but you have the mindset of like, okay, it works really well once it's connected to Fury Road, and you watch it as one big movie.
I don't know if anyone does retro cuts, but there are people that do retro cuts, and I think this film could benefit to have at least 30 minutes cut down. And how long was Fury Road? I don't know. Was that about 2 hours?
Yeah, around that mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Furiosa, we're clocking in at about just over 2 hours, aren't we? So it's 2.5 hours. Furiosa is that's quite a long movie.
That is quite a long movie.
It didn't feel like 2.5 hours, but it was still a bit like you could probably cut 20 minutes out of that and be like, that was a good good pace to it. It's a little bit more where Fury Road doesn't have issue with pacing. It's just
I think Fury Road's perfectly
boom, boom, boom. But Fury Road is just 2 hours, which is perfect, really, for an action movie. Really, action movies really should be about 1:45.
Yeah.
Where Mad Max 1 and 2 are basically like good solid 90-minute movies, 93, 95.
There's no fat.
No fat, no.
There's
well, you could argue Mad Max has a little bit more of like a baggy sort of moments, but they're kind of fine, within.
No, they're fine. But Mad Max 2, I think, is probably the most perfect. Oh, not most, but Mad Max 2 works perfectly as the action film that it is, and there's very little in terms of like fat. There's nothing. You're compelled with the story. You're all the way through, and people say Fury Road is kind of like Mad Max 2 on steroids.
Yes,
and I can see that with the years going by. Had it been Mel Gibson in the role, I think it would have been the perfect Mad Max film. perfect. Would have been a very good Mad Max
Yeah.
film on par if it had been Mel Gibson's Mad Max.
Oh, he would have been. Yeah, it shows you how integral an actor is to a role, and
Definitely.
I know Tom Hardy does a very good job. You know,
He
but
does.
Tom Hardy's just playing. It's not the male Max. It's more of a meat-headed Max. You know, but you know, by the end, you know, his Max is very much in keeping point with what Mel did, where he just like, where she's, you know, Charlize Theron's looking at him at the end, he just kind of nods his head and walks off into the crowd and disappears. That is Max. You know, he's not there for accolades. He's there to give me my petrol and I'll go. You know, that's all he wants.
Mel, the thing about Mel is he plays wounded so well. Like, that's something Tom Hardy can't play. I don't think Tom Hardy can play the, like, I'm hurting inside. Where Mel, in Mad Max 2, especially at the end of 1, he did the same thing in Lethal Weapon, especially the first 2 Lethal Weapons. You know inside he's a heartbroken man. He's got a devastated man. And even in part 3, there are slight hints of it. And there was a deleted scene that kind of did that. That's the problem with Tom Hardy's Max, is that he's not living in pain from the people that he lost. Mel Gibson did that perfectly.
Yeah, because Fury Road kind of gives you weird. He has weird nightmares or flashbacks to. It could be the kids, the lost kids from Thunderdome. You know, you see those kids screaming, or you know,
It's from the game, I think.
Is it from the game?
Remember, like in the game where he meets that girl and her daughter.
Yes.
I think that's the story. Because he couldn't save her, and the little girl's hurt.
Yeah, because we hadn't played the game when we first saw Fury Road, so everyone was kind of theorising that it could be Thunderdome because of all the kids and stuff, right? And you got the kid who's in Thunderdome, who looks like a war boy. So that kind of, for once, there's some sort of connection with the future events. So, but yeah, I mean, I think Mel Gibson's performance is always a bit more nuanced than Tom Hardy's, because Mel's a brilliant actor, and he was also put through a lot more torture, you know, because Max, you know, gets his petrol in Road Warrior and then crashes his car and he's fucked, you know, so he has to come crawling back to say, okay, I'll drive that rig, you know what I mean? So with a battered eye, you know, battered leg. So yeah, I mean, it's as you're saying, if Mel did come back for Fury Road, it would have been
the perfect connection to all of them.
Yeah,
I think that's me. That's my opinion. That's not.
And Miller doesn't see Mel returning to play an older Max because he can't envision an older Max.
Yeah,
people
asked
that's a
him.
shame. That's a shame.
That is very a shame.
Yeah.
Can you see an old man Max, Mad Max?
It's called Grumpy Max now.
Grumpy Max. Kind of contrary to your sort of thing about, do you think Furiosa doesn't work without Fury Road? I think, as a standalone, I think it can be a good film on its own. I don't feel you necessarily have to watch Fury Road, but it complements it. I get that part. It does complement Furiosa. Is very much more complemented by Fury Road, and they work well together.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think you have to go watch Fury Road after you watch that, because I don't feel the same way about Mad Max 1.
Well, no, because Furiosa has a start, middle, and end.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
it has that.
Because those characters are very much strengthened by Fury Road, you'd be a fool not to watch it. You know what I mean? So just to ignore it, you know. So it stands on its own, of course, as a storytelling piece, but it relies so much on Fury Road to bring a lot of weight to it. So yeah, it is very much seen as a two-parter, and that's the first time Miller's ever done that. You know, because 1, 2, and 3 just don't connect at all, apart from maybe number 2 giving you a little bit of backstory to tell you, oh yeah, this is actually a sequel. You know.
Yeah. So, do you think he's going to follow up? No, this is it. I think.
Well, judging by the box office, it'd be Miller said he wants to make more Mad Max films, which is wonderful, but it is a business, you know, and if it doesn't make any money, enough money to cover the costs of the production and marketing, then Warner's will be like, nope, you're not making it, and then Miller will probably retire, and then someone else will take up the Mad Max thing in maybe another decade.
I wouldn't mind.
But yeah, I'm sure there's other directors in Australia who are, you know, even like the second unit team on this could do a great Mad Max, as long as, you know, George has got his input in terms of story, you know, and the creative design. But yeah, that's what I think.
So now, as we close off, just one suggestion. In what order would you watch these films if you want? Because you just watch 1, 2, and 3 to watch this.
Yeah.
What order would you watch the whole thing now as it is? to get the full thing.
Well, actually, I'd probably just watch them as they were released, because judging by the fact that Miller says Furiosa takes place around Thunderdome, it kind of makes sense to do that. You wouldn't, I wouldn't watch them out of all. It's kind of weird. Or I wouldn't watch like Fury Road first, then Mad Max 2, then 3, whatever. I just watch it how they were released. Yeah,
I'd probably, having had this discussion, I'd watch 1, 2, Furiosa, Beyond Thunderdome, and Fury Road. I might watch it in that order. I think that would be an interesting order to do it. Leave that gap between Furiosa and Fury Road. Get away from that world. Go to Bartertown. And then finish off with that kicker of Fury Road.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
Well, so I guess that's pretty much everything we've touched upon now for that one. So I hope you all enjoyed the podcast. I'd really like to thank Oliver Harper here for helping me out with this my first podcast. And if you want a more in-depth sort of discussion that we've had, go check out his commentaries that we did together. This has now gone a couple of years ago. We did.
Yeah. 1, 2, and 3.
We did 1, 2, and 3. Go check it out on his channel. And yeah, I still listen to that commentary every now and then for a giggle, shits and giggles, man. I think it's just I had fun. I don't know about you.
I always have fun doing them. It's always good.
No, they're always fun to do it. And not only that, check out his channel if you haven't seen it. You've done reviews also on the first couple of Mad Max, haven't you? Have you done 3?
No, I will be doing number 3 in the month of June. So yeah, this month really coming up. So yeah, very soon.
Well, there you go. Like, if you want to check out some more Mad Max content, go check out Oliver's channel as well. Once again, thank you very much, Oliver, for being here. I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. I hope we got a bit more out of the experience. Makes me want to check out Furiosa again as well, just to give more detail. Like, maybe I did miss something. Anyway. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And yeah, hope you enjoyed, and look forward to seeing you next video. Take care. Bye. And bye from you there, Oliver.
Goodbye, everyone. Take care.
Cheers.